James here, and I'm with Logan. I
What's
know
up?
I know I've had a random assortment of guests on lately, but Logan's my best friend, and I've wanted him on here for a while, and he actually likes football. So Logan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's another gray day in Columbus, Ohio, but
That's right.
happy to be here.
Logan's currently stationed at the Ohio State University coming in. I finally got my draft expert in after many months of alluding to my draft expert and saying, "Oh, we're going to get him on board. We're going to get him in for something." He's finally in for something. And what a perfect day to have my draft expert on board
On
because
this
it's
perfect
draft day.
football holiday.
Oh, it's such a beautiful day. Are you excited? I mean, you're more of a college guy, so, but
I'm
it's
excited to see my college guys drafted to see where they land.
yeah,
Yeah,
man.
exciting.
It's an exciting day. It's very exciting. A lot of rumors floating around today.
That's right.
Um, some of them good, some of them not so good. You know. Um, have you heard the latest rumors?
I'm hearing a lot. I'm here in Columbus, Ohio. We got a lot of Browns fans in the area
Hmm.
near Cleveland, and we're hearing a lot of rumors about Baker going one overall. So
Yeah.
we're
Okay. I
we're
don't know. I don't know what's going on in anything anymore because
yeah.
I thought Sam Darnold was the number one overall pick, and this could be a smokescreen or whatever. I thought Sam
Yeah.
Darnold was going to be number one, but right now there's a trending. I feel bad for the bookies because
Tough job, tough
it's
job.
it's going to be ridiculous. But apparently, right now the the latest is that Mayfield's trending to go number one. Do you think Mayfield's going to go number one, or do you think it's going to be? Do you think Sam Darnold's still a lock? Because me personally, I think Sam Darnold's the best quarterback in the draft right now. Would you agree with
So
that?
there's a few things happening here. If it was any other team on the clock right now, I would feel very safe saying that Sam Darnold would be the number one overall pick.
Yeah.
But it's the Browns. The Browns, have not had the best draft picking history. I mean, they did draft Johnny Manziel a few years ago, and they seem to like these quarterbacks. Just have a lot of confidence, a lot of cockiness,
Mhm.
and you can never guess what the Browns are going to do. So while I think Sam Darnold is still more likely to be the number one overall pick, you can never be sure when the Browns are the ones on the clock.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because so many quarterbacks have been rumored to the first pick. Not so many. There's four quarterbacks that are probably going to go in the top seven,
Yeah,
and Josh Allen was projected to maybe go number one. First it was Sam Darnold, then Josh Allen, now Baker Mayfield. Maybe they're just
and then
going
you
to take.
got Josh Rosen kind of floating in. There's a pretty big contingent of people here in Columbus that want Josh Rosen to be that pick, but it just doesn't seem likely at this point.
Yeah, so I honestly don't know what the Browns are going to do. We know we know that they're going to take a quarterback, and then moving on to pick two, the
Yeah.
Giants. I have no idea what's going to happen with the Giants. They could take a quarterback, which honestly, that I don't know if that's going to happen at this point. They
I
could
think
they could take
most
Saquon
li-
Barkley or Bradley
yeah.
Chubb or trade down. Do you think
I
it's
think most likely it's Barkley or trade down. That's pretty much what I'm seeing right now is that if they're picking, it's going to be Barkley, but if not, they're going to trade down. I don't think they're quite ready for a quarterback yet, or if they are, then they would trade down because there are so many good quarterbacks. The argument would be, do you need to draft one at two overall when maybe your best guy could still be there at pick seven or pick eight? So it's a lot of stuff to juggle. I think the draft night's gonna be really interesting. There's gonna be a lot of trades, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes.
yeah, cool because there's so many teams talking about trading up right now. I don't necessarily know if because if you're the Buffalo Bills, it's more manageable. I would say the Bills are the most likely team to trade up
Yeah,
because you can package 12, you can package 22. If you're the New England Patriots or you're the Miami Dolphins or the Arizona Cardinals, you're in a way tougher position because you've got to compete with the Bills.
yeah.
That sucks.
And
That's
just even with the Patriots, they just have such a rich history of always trading down. I think it'd be pretty shocking for a lot of people for them to trade up. That would be very
it's not their style, especially for
yeah.
Belichick.
Yeah, they're always. I'd be almost surprised if they end up drafting both picks in the first round.
Yeah.
They're always a trade down and build up those lower round picks.
Just get
So
all sixth round draft picks
yeah,
and just
exactly. Turn
prove.
them into all pro players.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I want to talk real quick about the Bucks, just kind of taking the focus away from the overall top of the draft board. So I don't know if you read this yet, but the Bucks did just re-sign Charles Sims today to a one-year
Okay.
deal. You know, our boy. I remember you weren't happy about that move whenever they drafted the running back in the third round years ago, and you were like, "Oh, this sucks." And I think finally a lot of Bucks fans have caught up to your viewpoint.
Yeah.
So the question is this from Hamza is do you think we still try and reach for a running back before the fourth round? And I don't know if necessarily reach is the right word to use, but do you think we pick a running back in the second round because we don't have a third? So do you think second round the Bucks do take a running back there, or do they maybe try and trade back up into the first? What do you think
Uh,
happens?
I personally would be pretty surprised if the Bucks do end up taking a running back in the second round. I think all signs right now are pointing to definitely defensive back in the first round. So kind of your pick between uh, Derwin James, Minsa Fitzpatrick, and Denzel Ward, who's ever available, whoever they're feeling best there. But with that second round, I think it's more up in the air. But with this draft class, there's just not as many those upper tier running backs. So it'll really depend. Darius Geis, if he's still available in the second round, then that's maybe something the Bucks would consider.
Hmm.
But I think there's a lot of guys that are going to get drafted in the fourth, fifth, sixth rounds that are really quality running backs that are going to turn into starters in the league. So unless the guy Darius Geis is there in the second round, then I would not see that happening. I wouldn't see that being very likely.
Do you think that Darius guys will fall to the second round? Me personally, I don't think it's gonna happen. I think
Yeah,
his
I think he's going to be a first rounder.
I
That's just
think
the only thing I could see.
yeah, and I think his floor is probably where the Seahawks picks. I think it's pick 20. I think that's where his floor is. He'll at least go to pick 20 because I know the Seahawks are in love with him. The Bucks are in love with him. Um,
Yeah.
would you take would you be able to take Darius Geis and think like, yeah, I'm confident in this pick, like, you know, I'm fine with this because I know he had some character issues coming into this draft. So, is Geis a running back that you think that you'd be able to trust? Because people, the talk now is that, and it's been this talk for a while, that like the separation in talent between Barkley and Geis isn't that much.
Yeah, I mean, as far as on-field production, the gap isn't much, but Saquon Barkley just such a combine freak, one of those that just has the insane measurables. So that's really what separates him.
Hmm.
But Geis, you could argue, had the better just total like as a pure running back. Saquon Barkley, he had some really crazy games, but he also had a ton of games where he only had 30, 40 rushing yards. And I don't think that really is going to speak to his NFL production, but I think that was kind of the argument of making Geis and Barkley really close as far as their on-field tape, but kind of the off-field stuff is what really elevates Barkley. So, I mean, there's people like I could see them maybe reaching for like a Nick Chubb, who's supposed to go the second, third round. But if I was the Bucks, kind of in their war room, waiting a little bit because there's some really great running backs like on Johnson out of Auburn,
Hmm.
and then some other guys like Naeem Hines and
Royce Freeman.
I don't know.
Royce Freeman's been
Uh,
a popular name lately.
yeah, he's supposed. I think he's more of like fourth, fifth rounder. So I think getting somebody at that stage would be a lot more advantageous for the Bucks because there's a lot of high production running backs that are going to go a little later, and I think they could have really good careers. Even like Josh Adams in Notre Dame is another name to maybe watch out for,
Hmm.
and then some of those other guys that are more like Division two that I'm not as um,
Familiar
I'm
with.
not as yeah, but there are a lot of good running backs in this draft that are going to be available later, and only there's not just not as many like really high impact guys outside of Barkley.
Yeah. And speaking of uh, Bucs draft scenarios and stuff like that. Jeremy says this. I'm starting to be a Derwin James guy. We need some leadership on the back end of our defense. I'd love a big name, but I'm comfortable with James now. So let's talk about that, okay? My first question is this: how? Because in the mind of Bucs fans, I don't know if you're familiar with this. There's a big three, okay, and that's Saquon Barkley, that's Quentin Nelson, and that is Bradley Chubb. How likely do you think it is that one of those big three is going to fall to pick 7? And if one did have to fall, who would it be?
Yeah, I think Barkley is definitely gone by pick 7.
Yeah.
So I would say that name is pretty much gone. Bradley Chubb also looks like he's going to be top 5 pick. And I've seen some mock drafts have Quentin Nelson up in the top 5. Some even have him as the number 1 overall prospect in the draft. But once you factor in team needs for everybody, then some of those mocks have him going down to 8 to 10. So out of those 3, I think Nelson is the most likely to be available at 7. And then it's kind of depends on the Bucs strategy of, are you drafting best available or are you drafting top need? Because I'm still under the assumption that the Bucs are going to go with their top defensive back, whether that's going to be Fitzpatrick, Ward, or Derwin James. But if Nelson, I think there is a chance that he could be available at 7. And if the Bucs did draft him, I think that would be something that Bucs.Nation should be pretty happy about. He's going to be in the league for a really long time and is going to start from day 1.
Okay, now this next question is a bit controversial. You don't have to answer fully if you don't want to, but if you had to pick between Derwin James and Minkah Fitzpatrick, who would you pick? I'm not including Denzel Ward because that's. I don't need your Ohio State bias in here.
No, actually, you wouldn't even. My bias wouldn't go in here because I love Denzel Ward, but I don't love him for Tampa Bay. I feel like they've gone pretty cornerback heavy at the top of the draft in recent years, and I mean, I'm not the biggest Bucs fan in the world, but I follow them enough. I got to support my boy James, so I keep up with the team. And I know safety has been an area of concern for a while, and Denzel Ward is no safety. So if I was the Bucs, I would definitely go with Fitzpatrick or Derwin James. And if they're both available, then Minkah Fitzpatrick is my pick. Derwin James had a ton of hype going into his junior year, and he really underperformed this year. I mean, there were some lingering concerns with injury, but he really just didn't have the year people thought that he would. But their off-field measurables are about the same. But once you look at the on-field production, Minkah Fitzpatrick, he definitely was a tier above and has all of the athleticism that Derwin James has. So if I had to pick between the two, Fitzpatrick would be my guy. He'd be the guy I'd be rooting for the Bucs to take.
Would you think about trading down? Because if the Bucs do get trade offers, maybe from the Miami Dolphins, maybe from the Arizona Cardinals, it's probably more manageable for both those teams to trade to pick 7 rather than trying to compete with the Bills to get pick 4 or pick 2 or whatever. Would you trade back if you had the option to, or would you go with a Minkah Fitzpatrick or maybe a Derwin James or a Denzel Ward?
I think if James or Fitzpatrick is available at 7, then the Bucs should draft one of those guys. There's only in any given draft, 6 to 10 guys that are kind of those just really elite prospects, like in that first tier, and then it kind of drops off into a second tier.
Yeah.
And both of those guys are in that first tier, and so if the Bucs have one of those available, I think it'd be really, really smart of them to keep that pick and draft. There's teams that you draft down, you think you're going to get a lot of value. You draft the next best safety kind of in that second class, and then it just really doesn't work out. I mean, the classic example, as a guy living in Columbus last year, the Browns were on the clock, pick 15. They had Malik Hooker available as a safety, and they decided to trade down to pick 29, and they drafted Jabril Peppers. And year 1, that definitely did not work out for them.
Listen.
With that choice, so
I
would hate to see the Bucs pull the same thing.
I learned my lesson with Jabril Peppers, okay, and I want to bring up versatility because that's important in my opinion. I feel like the whole versatility thing with Jabril Peppers hurt him a little bit in my opinion because, quite frankly, they didn't really know where to play him. I mean, it's Cleveland, so you know you take what
Yeah.
take whatever. But
So
do you think the versatility of Derwin, or not Derwin James, I guess I should say, but Minkah Fitzpatrick, do you think that hurts him in any regard? Do you think like teams value him as a pure cornerback or a pure safety? Where do you think teams value him? And where do you think he would personally fit best in terms of a prospect?
personally, I see him as more of a safety. There's kind of a difference between Jabril Peppers last year and Minka this year. I know this pretty well as being an Ohio State fan. So Jabril Peppers played for Michigan, so I watched a lot of his games. And each season he was playing a different role. So he was linebacker, he was playing offense at wide receiver, he was playing cornerback, playing safety. He never really got that many reps at any one position. So he was just this kind of jack of all trades but master of none coming out of college. Didn't really have anything that he was exceptional at. Whereas Minkah Fitzpatrick has shown himself to be exceptional at both cornerback and safety. And so I think in his case, the versatility is a strong suit, and the Bucs could play him at either position, and he would excel. And this is coming from an Ohio State guy. We don't like Alabama, but Minkah Fitzpatrick is a guy that it's hard to find a ton of flaws with. And I think the Bucs are first going to put him at safety, but if that doesn't work out, then he will be an exceptional corner as well. So I think in this case, they're looking at it as more as a positive, where for Jabril Peppers, it could have been seen more as a negative.
Yeah. And then just a quick note here from Jeremy St. John again is I also saw Green Bay is looking to trade up between 7 and 10 to grab Ward as well. It's Denzel Ward. Just another trade down option potentially, I guess, for the Bucs is just what he's saying. Do you guys like any offensive linemen in the second round, or do you think we continue to build on defense in the second? And in my opinion, I would honestly prefer some more cornerbacks. I don't necessarily. I mean, yes, secondary is. I feel like you should maybe address the secondary in round one if none of the top three are there. But in the second, I still feel that you should address at least cornerback, because after Brent Grimes and after Vernon Hargraves, in my opinion, you don't have much. So is there anybody that you like in the second round? I know maybe Carlton Davis will be there, but probably not. Do you take a risk of drafting like Mike Hughes? Who do you value in the second round, at least in terms of on defense? Somebody I think said Sam Hubbard earlier, actually.
Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with what the draft needs for the Bucs are. I know outside of defensive backs, but this is another cornerback class that's a little bit smaller than in years past as far as kind of like the height, but it is very athletic. So there is Mike Hughes, so he's out of UCF. He definitely his combine performance wasn't exactly what people were expecting out of him, but if he's available there in the second round, that could be a pick. And then the guy I like in the second round would be Isaiah Oliver. He's out of Colorado. So if people were looking at a pick, he was one. He definitely plays a little bit bigger. He's a little bit more of like a solid guy, and so there's him. But then also LSU is one of those that constantly is pumping out defensive backs. So Dante Jackson out of LSU was a guy that they could look for as well. He had the fastest time at the combine, tied with Denzel Ward. So he's definitely got the speed, but they're both a little bit on the smaller side. So there are definitely some good options there.
Yeah. And then just another quick question here from Hans is, what do you think the worst thing that the Bucs can do tonight? So just keep in mind only the first rounds tonight. Just for those of you who are watching tonight or now, is what do you think the worst thing that the Bucs can do tonight, and what is our best case scenario for the Bucs? Let's start with the worst thing. What do you think the worst thing that could happen is?
If they draft a wide receiver or tight end, for me would be worst case scenario.
They're just gonna end up taking Antonio Callaway or DJ Moore. Confirmed.
Yeah, that would be for me kind of a worst case scenario. I'd also be, and we've talked about drafts the past 5 years or so. Yeah. Every year, I've almost always like, man, the Bucs should draft down. There's a ton of value there. But this is like the 1 year where I'm like pretty firm. Like the Bucs really should their pick.
They should trade down their pick or hold it.
No, they should hold it. So I don't think it's a worst case scenario, but I personally would be pretty bummed if the Bucs traded down and tried to build some of that capital. I think there's some really high quality guys there at pick 7 that are really good value. That so I think with that best case scenario, it would be getting Fitzpatrick or Derwin James. I think both are exceptional prospects.
I think also if you take Vita V, that might not be so good either.
Yeah, I think if they took him at 7, that'd be a huge reach. So if they did draft down, I think Vita Vea, I think he's really good. I've heard a little bit of the Aaron Donald comparison, which I think is just kind of just a little. I don't want to say lazy, but I think that's not that fair to Vita Vea. But I think he's a worthy first round pick. But I guess it kind of depends on what spot you're getting him in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, man, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up because I gotta go to Topgolf.
All right, I feel you.
Yeah. So Logan, thank you so much for being on, man. As always, I'm gonna have you on more, so don't you worry. Especially after this first round and maybe after just the draft in general, I want to have you on. So you guys will be seeing much more of Logan, and we might have other people on as well. So Logan, thank you so much for the analysis, and just thank you for finally coming on, my residential draft expert. Do you have any parting words?
Go Bucs and go Buckeyes.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, happy draft day. Thank you so much for watching, and if you watch later on, thank you so much for that as well. If you had to make one more thing, Logan, if you had to make a prediction for the pick for Bucs pick 7, what do you think it's going to be? Like right now, if you had a gun to your head, you had to pick 7. What do you think is going to happen?
I think what's going to happen is Derwin James at pick 7. That was my prediction.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, everybody. As always, follow us. You can follow us on social media. I'll actually link your Twitter in the description, Logan. So if you guys want to go follow Logan, it's a wonderful
I got a bad Twitter, but if you want a bunch of Ohio State news, feel free to follow.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, we will see you in the next live stream or video. But until then, goodbye for now, guys. See ya.